All right, Albano. My all-time favorite type of interview is that with a franchisee because it's so spectacular that you go from advancing your career and figuring out how do you become a business operator. And so I'd like to start there. I would love for you to tell me your accidental franchise story. How did you even get here? What is your backstory?
Yeah. So first, I moved here to the States in Cleveland in 2008 from a small country down southern Europe, Albania. And as we moved here, I started education, started my career, and my career for the last 11 years before I got into franchising was in what I would call real estate for the government. Um, and then I had a family, and we had two children. My oldest kid, he's on the spectrum. He has autism. So my wife and I were just looking for ways of trying to create a somehow a safe future, I'll call it, for him and his brother. And we were looking around on how do we do this, and we were searching for different ideas of starting a business. And then we thought, how about home care? And we didn't know it even existed until my mom went through an episode of a situation after COVID, and we had to use it ourselves. So then we're like, oh, this is great, and we looked into it, and then I was looking into um, a right at home territory that was far further from where we currently are. It was a resale, and the great thing with right at home is they like to keep their owners as close as possible to where the territory of the business is. And then at the time, the franchise master team said, "Hey, we how about this territory? It's brand new. How far is this from you?" And I'm like, 1.7 miles. So and that's all it was at that point. It only makes sense. It was sometimes we say right place, right time, and I think that's what it was.
If you go back to you working on your education, and I looked at the depth of your LinkedIn. I mean, business administration obviously can cross apply very nicely into being a franchisee. But at any point, you're you're building your education, you're building your career. Like, are you even thinking that franchising could be the end goal, or does it happen because you got to experience a business model as it related back to your mom?
So I was always thinking we came here to the U.S. with a dream. We came here to make it as far as we can. As you work into for other people, you try to have that mindset of act like an owner, but you're never ready for it. You're
Mhm.
never ready for it, and you that there is no there isn't a path that you have to follow to get into franchise. So I think you just have to do it. Once you stumble upon a an opportunity and you believe that is the right one, it's your right calling, then you do it.
If I again looking at your resume, because I'm always fascinated with the journey to becoming a business operator, like Cleveland Clinic, your teacher assistant, like it seems like all of those pieces, they're individual puzzle pieces at the time, but they fit into the whole DNA of how you operate this business. Are you able to like reflect backwards and say, okay, there's a reason I took that job because now when I'm dealing with the day to day of a business operator as a business operator that I understand like how it fits into that puzzle.
100%. I think coming in from a background of different, working in different places and having different acumens of business, it really helps. It goes in from managing a team of people at some point of 15 people, and now it goes a long way to being the business owner and managing the team that now it's literally your team. And going from that teaching experience, helping others there. I mean, you're still helping others in a different way, but at the same time, what that teaching experience did to me is it told me that you're dealing with different personalities,
Mhm.
and that was one thing that has helped a lot in this end. And then working at the Cleveland Clinic is just it gave me enough to be dangerous when it comes to the healthcare field, and the transition to this franchise opportunity. Then it was somehow somewhat easier.
When you start making the decision that you're looking at how do I go into business for myself, and you're obviously looking at right at home, how did you approach financing it and getting comfortable with the fact that you were going to have to make a big investment in your future? Like how did you mentally get confident in it, and then how did you go through the structure of building up the investment structure?
So in the beginning, that's what you're. I would think the number one obstacle for people to get into a business or a franchise is that of where are my finances going to come from. So you look at what you have built so far. You look at what your nest is, and you know how much of it you can try to get yourself to spend, and at the same time you look at all the options. With Right at Home, the great thing was we went to we went to the different banks, and Right at Home was already a an approved um, an approved concept for all those banks, which made it so much easier. And you spend sometimes some nights you don't sleep well because you're thinking, you're like, okay, I'm gonna tomorrow I'm supposed to sign my name next to the X, and that's it. And am I doing the right decision? Is this not the right decision? I think that um the important part for me was the transparency through the entire process with Right at Home, that it made me see that the value in it, and made the process a little less scareless. Obviously, I was scared. New venture, something I've never done before, but it wasn't as bad. Providing all the support that was given from corporate, and then all the other franchisees that you get to talk to.
Did Does your believability in this change when you have that first customer? Like, was that the trigger that made you feel confident? Like, okay, we got this. This is going to work out.
That I think you said it perfectly. That's how it works on stages. You go in, you start, you're signing your contract, you get a space for rent, and then you have your phone set up, phone starts ringing, then the first customer is signed up, and you do say, this is great, that we I believe on this, and thankfully I did this. I told people in the beginning, you have to see that. Don't measure it by when is that first client coming, but is your phone ringing? Because the clients are going to come, but what's important is your visibility. Do people even know that you're there?
I think about some of your story. I also have a child on the spectrum too, and I have not had to go. I have not gone through a place of having to understand caregiving for a parent at this point in life yet. But I understand compassion, and I understand that care. I understand all those elements. And so if I place this over here, like when I'm dialed in or I'm talking to someone who understands what I have to go through as a parent or as an adult, there's this just built-in sense of community on that. And then you take that and you mirror that or combine it with business, and now all of a sudden, like there's a core inside of your business that is different because you can relate to two different areas, your child and your mom. Are you able, like, is understanding like the impact of what you're doing, is that part of what drove you past like the stress of waiting for that phone to ring?
I Yes, I would say yes. That's those things that you mentioned, caring for our child and then helping with my mother. It's the why in the business. And seeing the need that they both had, and that my son still has, it was a thing that you knew the phone was going to start to ring, because if he needs the service, there's so many other people that need the service, and if my mom needs the service, there's so many more people that need the service. And the data too doesn't lie. When in the US, the data says that the next to kin for those over 65 years old in average lives about 350 miles away. Just that data alone should tell you that yes, your phone is going to ring. And make sure that you, along with your team, do the right thing as you continue in the business, and the phone will continue to ring.
In your home country, is senior care a thing yet, or is this something that if you zoom out and look at the way the world, because we're really talking about compassion and care and support for people at various stages in life and with various needs. Has this translated to the rest of the world, or was this somewhat new when you got to the United States?
So when I got to the United States, it was different for us. In those smaller countries in Europe, the other than the the western part of Europe, such as UK and maybe the Scandinavian countries, the senior care looks more of moving back with your children and families consolidating. That's for it's part of the culture, but then also economically speaking, it's the only way that some people can afford. When senior care is changing, however, it will never get to the to the way that we have it here in the US. Reason being in smaller countries, but at the same time, economically speaking, even when you see senior care done outside of a house, it's mostly you have the individual providers that the family hires on the side to take care of their parents. My parents, when they were here, they did the same thing for their parents. They paid someone for 24/7 care to live in their home. However, you know it was an individual person. They didn't hire the companies such as Right at Home and others do not exist, and that part of Europe at least yet.
One thing that you mentioned as a part of your opening statement was I moved here for the dream. And so obviously the work, the hard work you're putting in was to lead to this. I think of the dream in a few different ways. I think of it in my own life as a business owner. Do I take the time to take a step backwards and pinch myself and be grateful? And I try to remind myself to do that. And I also continue to keep dreaming. And that's what's fascinating about the dream. You dream to get to one level and you keep on dreaming. So my question is, like, do you give yourself permission to look at this and say, wow, this is really cool of what I've built? And then how is the dream continuing to evolve for you?
There is Yes, I should do a better job at it, but yes, we come from a culture where I use this example of you tell your parents, "Hey, dad, hey, mom, I got an A," and their answer would not be "Good job, you got an A," but they will ask, "Did everybody get an A?" So it's the culture of being humble. So I get those reflections mostly on when I see the roster of patients that we're serving, and at the same time the the payroll that I sign every week, and you realize how many families you're helping to carry on their lives by those paychecks, and at the same time how many clients you're serving. But not only you're serving them, but you're putting peace to their children's mind or to their other loved ones' mind. So those are things that I step back and say, those are great things that we're accomplishing. And then I look at myself 18 years ago when I was, a junior in high school in this small town in a part of Europe that many people don't even know where it is, to being in something live like this today. I think it's something that I need to take a little more pride on. But again, we try to stay as humble as we can. But they have been great accomplishments, and the dream doesn't stop. You're right. The dream is our dream as far as the business go. The dream is for us to be the local expert. When someone thinks of home care, they think Right at Home. That's the dream, and obviously that comes with the financial piece of it and everything else. But that the goal is that, and then hopefully to, when time is right, to try to expand in the territories a little more. But there is no push on that side. It's only right time, right place.
Isn't it crazy? Like, if you go back to the younger version of yourself and say, Someday I'm going to own a business. I'm going to be talking about scaling it and growing it." Like, it's crazy just to think of how all this ends up playing out, right?
It is and I think if I had to go back into it, as I always thought, even in my little self, when I was, I don't know, eighth grade freshman, what does it look like to own a business? And you look at other people and you're like, oh, he's a business owner, and you don't know what entitles. You think that it's all fleshy and fun, and once you start doing it, yes, it is fun. Sometimes it is flashy, but most of the time It's a lot of work, but I think it's as long as you want something, make sure it's always in your mind, and I think and obviously work hard for it, and you can get there.
Yeah, I think that's the misperception of someone who's not a business owner doesn't like they see the flash side of it, and there are a lot of benefits to being a business owner, but it's always on your mind. Like when you go to bed at night, you're still thinking about it, so you don't turn it off, and it's almost like you rewrite the definition of what work is, and it turns into life. And so there's no more like work-life balance, because it that is your balance, that is your life, that's what you work hard and you hustle for your family, and to build something greater than where you're currently at. But the pressures that exist on that of the back of a business owner can be significant. If if someone's watching this, and I think about like all of these human beings that are on the fence, and typically the thing that pushes them over, there's some turbulence in their job, they don't like their boss, they're getting overlooked for a promotion, and so that trigger exists. And then in senior care, it tends to be combined with, I have some sort of sense of understanding of what is caregiving and the absolute need for it, and the supply and demand for it. So those two things get married together. If there's someone out there that's sitting on the sideline and they're like, I just don't know if I can do this, what advice would you give them to maybe help them push themselves over that edge?
I have seen in my small tenure, I have seen people that do it for the right reasons and people that do it for the wrong reasons. Here's my thought. You can have all the business background that you can think of in the world. You, in order to be in senior care of that or that of adults with disabilities, because in this location we also work with adults with disabilities, but you have to have a very, very strong why. This is a business that if you do it right, the profit will be there. However, if you don't have a very strong why, the day-to-day processes and dealing with both ends, with clients and caregivers, could really make you struggle and make you exit the industry before you really see it through. So my thing is, if you have a strong why, do it. Don't think twice about it. Find a way, do it, you'll be successful. There is other people who maybe, it doesn't mean that if you don't have the strong why, don't do it. Maybe you need another layer to your business where you're not the face to face on your business and you're dealing with those two things that I mentioned before, caregivers and clients, both at the same time. And then you can do it. And you can just be the managing umbrella of the business. But those are things that impact your day to day, your phone ringing, a client complaining about something, or a call off the last minute. And that happening 3, 4, 5, 100 times can drain you pretty easy.
Oh, it can drain you. I mean, like I think back, my why when I started this business, I said this at the beginning of this interview. I love the franchisee. I'm fascinated by people that make the decision that I'm gonna pivot away from a career, something that I got my education in, I worked hard in, I moved up in, to say, what, I'm now going to be a business owner. And so now, yes, there's scaffolding around the franchise buyer because you're buying into a proven business and you have all the support and mechanism. But when I started our company, I was like, man, if we could just help a little bit on the storytelling for that franchisee, we can give. We're not going to be able to magically build crazy sales for them, but we're going to create awareness in the marketplace and hopefully impact their business. And that North Star, when that's inside of you, and for obviously for you, for seeing your child and your mom and understanding the need for this and all the impact that you have in the community and being the local expert, when there's a tough bump in the road or a little bit of turbulence, you say, okay, I'll figure out a way to battle through. And I think that's part of the magic of being, a business owner with purpose.
Exactly. And Nick, the other thing too is you said it very well, that you're building, up to the point that you become a franchisee, you have built a career that you worked hard for. I always want to say to people, you can always go back to that. If you spend 15, 20 years to be the financial expert in that you are,
Yeah.
you can always go back to it.
Yeah, that's a backup plan, right? And
You don't want to think of it as a backup plan. You don't want to think of it as that. But if you're really worried about this not being what you think it's going to be, always think of that as well. You can always go back to where you were.
I was talking to a business owner yesterday, and she said, "Well, I'm gonna give this a run and see what happens for the next year, and if it doesn't work, we'll pivot." I said, "Well, wait a second. You're playing not to lose. You're not playing to win." I'll flash forward. You're going to get to that point, and it's not going to work out. Like the mentality has to be, I'm gonna crush it at all costs. Like I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna use my hustle and grit to get there. And sometimes that's the internal discussion that someone has to have. Like
Yep.
you said, I'm doing this because I have a dream for my family, and you aligned your skill set with your passion and picked right at home. If you get into this and you're like, well, maybe this will work, then it like you have to be ready to go.
And and you will, if you ask people that are around me, they'll tell you that I've said the one thing that there's two things that I say. First, when it comes to people I work with that are on my team, I say, first time I meet them, I say, I would never expect you to work harder than me. So that's the one thing. No one, as a business owner, don't expect even your best employee ever. If you expect them to work harder than you, then you're in trouble. The next thing is, I tell people around me, this is it. There is no other option for me when I started, and I still say it today. So this will succeed because there is no other option to it. And you go from there. You make it work. You find a way.
Well, I'm grateful we had this conversation, and what I love about your story is the I love the stories where someone isn't just handed the silver spoon. They have a dream, they take risk. Even you moving to this country is such a big, impactful thing for you to go through that. Like you add in all of these elements and you still keep going and you still have impact for people. And you talked about the paychecks that you write, and you didn't say, oh, I have to write paychecks. You said it's because I'm able to help other families too. Like just all the things about you are headed in the right direction. It's awesome to have spent some time with you, and I'm grateful that you and I got to have some time together too.
I appreciate it, Nick, and hopefully we can have this conversation again when we're 5 years down the road, and talk a little bit about where I saw myself 2 years and now 5 years, and go from there. I just have to tell people, if if you have a dream, go for it, man. If you it, it's this is the best country in the world for that to happen, and if you have the dream, just do it.
Well, these aren't designed to get into politics, but here's one last thing that I want to say about what you just said. And I can see it. Like anytime there's politics or shifts in presidential elections, a year after a president is elected, there can be turbulence. And you just said, I can't wait to talk about what's going to happen in 5 years. And so what you're saying is, I'm going to carve my own path and I'm going to continue to press forward. That's pretty magical. And so for like, I can see it with some franchise buyers right now, they're reluctant to move forward because there's some unknowns in the economy or in the stock market or in what's happening from a political standpoint. And you just said, I'm going to keep moving forward. Let's do this video in five
Yeah,
years. I love that. I think it's fantastic.
you would never know what's going to happen tomorrow. There is no gambling with anyone's life or any world events or economic events, but you can only make decisions based on what you see today and go from there.
I love it. Albano, I'm grateful for this conversation. For Albano, I'm Nick. This was another episode of Meet the Z. Take That was wonderful. Thanks for doing that. We'll
Appreciate
yeah,
it.
we'll